there I had an oversight, but...
No, but why is it an oversight if there's a clear instruction? An oversight is something that you overlook. Here, it's a direct instruction to you from your superior, and you disobeyed that instruction. And the city continued. I mean, these invoices, it was 14 million every month that the city continued to incur. I'm only talking about Gobies. I'm not even referring to other ones. You knew that they were not regularly given, and your superiors say to you, cancel them tomorrow. When you were suspended 4 months later, you still had not cancelled any of them.
I agree because, Commissioner, bear with me. When these Adhoc services were dished out, right? They were dished out by Water and Sanitation Department with the understanding between them and the service provider that they would pay from them. So, though my explanation will not hold water, right? The bottom line is, maybe if the Commission gives me an opportunity to go and check in my record the response that I gave to Commissioner Space. It is not true that I blatantly refused to carry out his instruction, right? But it is true that as we went along, what transpired is that he ended up identifying Kobe's triotic Mogalagali security services, and those Adhoc services were terminated. I am the one who called them into a meeting. Actually, I'm the one who drafted a letter for him to sign, and I called them into a meeting, right? I handed those letters of cancellation over to the three companies.
And that was what, 4 months later?
It was around, yes, it could be around more.
Let me help you go to 246.
246.
And that was on the 24th of June, 2025.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes, I can. I see.
Yes. And yet you say at the time that you did not immediately comply with the instruction, which was for you to terminate the ad hoc services, the very following day being the 13th of March, 2025. I'm looking at page 241, the email from Deputy Chief Space. You say your only problem at that stage was that the instruction was inclusive of ad hoc assignments or allocations, in respect of which there were no problems. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
So you must have been aware as early as at the time you knew that the instruction was inclusive of these other allocations, as to which ones those were, or it should at the very least have been a matter of relative ease for you to identify which ones did not have any problems. Not so.
It's so, Commissioner.
And so why would it have taken you from 12 March 2025 to 24 June 2025 before you could comply with the instruction?
Commissioner, I still maintain that I exchanged communication with Commissioner Ribosbis from this date in the run-up to when the cancellation was effected. So
Remember you agreed when Commissioner Kumalo was engaging you that this issue was something that you were engaging in with others as early as December of the previous year. You remember you said so in response to a question by Commissioner Kumalo.
I do, Commissioner.
Now, surely, if your view was that there were no problems at all with some of these entities, as early as December of the previous year, you should have been beginning to see which ones have no problems at all and which ones do have problems as early as December of the previous year. Maybe even that is kind to you.
Commissioner.
Not so.
It's so, Commissioner.
It is so.
Yes.
So now eventually, in March, 12th of March 2025, you get a direct categorical instructions, terminate these with effect from tomorrow, which was the 13th of March 2025. Why did you not do that in respect of those companies that you saw no problems, or rather, in respect of those companies that certainly had problems, or in respect of which there were issues? Why did you not do it on the 13th of March 2025?
Commissioner, I am aware that there were discussions around payment of these companies. Okay.
No, Mr. Malatji. The issue could not have been around payment. The issue was around the propriety of the allocations. It was not about payments. The issue with regard to the instruction, terminate this, it was not really about payments.
I agree with you, Commissioner.
So why do you bring in the question of payments?
No, I was trying to make the Commissioner aware that maybe the reason why I could not comply with the instruction at that point in time, it was as a result of communications that I was monitoring, communications.
What communications?
There were email communications involving my supervisor, Commissioner Spies, and others. But now, I might have made a mistake.
The content of which, or rather, what was the content of those communications? What were the communications about?
The communications were about paying for these services, right? And participants were suggesting.
But could you not have terminated? Could you not have terminated the service and sorted out the question of payment later? Why must the services continue, piling up the need for more payments? That doesn't make sense to me. Why not terminate immediately and sort out payment where payment was indeed due? Sort that out later.
I think, Commissioner, like I said, that could have been, actually has been an oversight on my part.
A serious oversight, a serious oversight. Do you agree?
I agree. Commissioner.
To that It's actually it's more serious than an oversight, because we know that in January and February, when PIRI issues these deployment letters, which you have already admitted he didn't have that kind of authority and he didn't get that authority delegation from you, you never delegated him to do that. We know that in January and February, he caused an expense of 14 million rand. Just goobies. I think it's just goobies, the 14 million or 12 goobies. It's 2 million rand, which is not, in the circumstances, is not a big difference. But he cost that much when in December already, you were in a position to give him instruction not to issue any deployment letters further. You were in a position in December to give a directive to the departments that all requests must come through you or you must be copied. You were in a position to do that. And you did not. You failed to do that. And I want to put this to you, that in fact, you were the effective cause of that 14 million rand expense of January and February, because you chose not to stop PIRI, not to instruct him to stop any further letters of deployment for ad hoc services. You chose not to tell departments to direct their requests to you. You chose not to tell the service providers that all instructions must come through you, or they must confirm with you that it is approved. All of that as head of department was within your power, and just you alone. You had that power to do all of that. You failed. As a result, the municipality, because of PIRI, incurred a 14 million rand expense. And I don't think you should calmly sit there and say it's an oversight. I think you should take full responsibility for that expense, because it was well within your powers to avoid it, and you dismally failed, either because you chose to look the other way and not stop it when you knew you had the power to stop it, or you were grossly negligent not to stop it. It's not oversight. I don't know if you want to comment, but the sum of what I'm saying is you are responsible for that irregular expenditure of 14 million rand.
Commissioner, I think given the way things have transpired at the end, yes, but I want the Commissioner not to lose sight of the fact that there is a department that which irregularly from the beginning, right, ignored the instruction, right, the instruction that the city has issued to all group heads in the city of Tshwane, to the effect that every ad hoc security services request should be directed to Asset Protection Services, TMPD. Therefore, I don't think it would be fair for the Commissioner to put all of these things squarely on my shoulders, yet I am not the cause of the problem. I happened to be in the bandwagon because I had a responsibility, something that I accept. But in terms of the cause of the problem, the department said they would avail funds to pay for these services. And the department went further to instruct UBIs to deploy security officers on sites that they identified themselves, right? Which is not wrong because it is their site. But now, at that point in time, right, I was not involved. I was not aware.
You see, if your department did not issue a deployment letter if Mr. Phiri did not issue a deployment letter, maybe let me ask you the question, a question. If Mr. Phiri had not issued a deployment letter, would Gobis have been at the site without a deployment letter from you? Because I've looked at the service level agreement. It provides for contact people. It says you may be asked to do certain things, but it must be in writing, right? So I've seen that in your service level agreement. Had your department and Phiri not issued a deployment letter, would there be an obligation on the department on the city, in fact, to pay for services that are done when Gobis doesn't have a deployment letter?
The answer is yes, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner.
Yes.
Right? Because the information which I do not have at my disposal now, right? But I will talk to that information for the information of the Commissioner, is that the department instructed Gobis to deploy ad hoc security services on sites that they have identified.
Let me read for you 8.2 of your service level agreement. It says, should it be necessary, the city may request the service provider to provide it with such additional services, which once agreed upon by the parties, which agreement shall not be binding until reduced to writing.
Yes.
So, your service level agreement tells the service provider that you have to have something in writing, which constitutes an agreement between us and you. Phiri issues a deployment letter, which is signed by Phiri and by the service provider. So there is an agreement, right, between the city and the service provider. So what I'm putting to you is, if Phiri had not issued a deployment letter, there would be no written agreement between the city and, in particular, the department that's responsible for administering these agreements, right? There would be no agreement between the service provider and the city. And if Gobis went on to do the work, the city would be able to say, well, we don't have an agreement with you. It would have a defense to that. But Phiri has denied the city that defense. So you can't blame the department. The department requires the service, yes. But you have a service level agreement that says it has to be reduced to writing. And Phiri does exactly that. And my gripe with you, or my issue with you, is had you stopped Phiri in December, when you became aware that Phiri is a free agent, he goes about doing things that are way above his pay grade, when you became aware of it, had you stopped him, the 14 million rand that was incurred for January and December would not have happened. It wouldn't, as a fact. It would not have happened.
I agree, Commissioner.
Yes, and that's my basis for saying you are responsible for that financial cost to the city, which is caused by Phiri, and you are responsible by omission. You failed to act. And the question is whether, was it deliberate that you don't act when the facts called for you as head of department to act? Did you deliberately hold off and therefore created an environment where Phiri does what he does? Or you were negligent? And if you were negligent, it's grossly negligent, which in fact borders on intention. That's what I'm saying. That's a basis for my saying you are responsible for causing that irregular expenditure. If you want to comment, you can, but that's what I'm putting to you. That's my position about it. All right, thank you.
No comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Kapan.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just on logistics, can I just request 5 minutes or just adjournment? Just there's some logistical issue that I need to address.
Let us adjourn. We'll come back when it's indicated we should.
Thank you.